get started.
We'd love for you to join us as together we worship our awesome God. It's 34 degrees.
Thanks for being with us today on Text Message. We're glad that you're here. We hope that something we say can help and encourage you. From time to time on this program, we have so many different and different speakers. Before sadly they passed on to their reward with Tate Williams, and of course his brother as well doing something called Take a Moment and being able to record some of those programs. Maybe you remember Reese Britton doing a program called The Message. Whatever you remember about Text Message, we hope it's a pleasant thing, and we love to start off every single program with a quote from the book Today Is Mine by Leroy Brownlow. The purpose for starting off with a quote is so that you and I as people can examine our lives. The Bible talks about putting away the old man and being a new man. And of course it's going to take some work. It's going to take some study and some observation of the things that we struggle with the most in our lives. You know, for you, you may struggle with something that I don't struggle with at all. But I may struggle with something that you don't struggle with at all. And so the purpose of reading a quote, an inspirational quote, is to try to look at that and examine and say, is this a problem in my life? Is it something that I should be working on? And if it is something I should work on, how can I fix it? And so right now we're going to read a quote called, "Sorrow is in the plan." Sorrow is a part of the world's plan. Sooner or later it visits us all. But not all of us react in the same way. Some mellow, others harden. It can beautify your life like the dew gives the flower a mere beautiful hue. Grief can cause us to be more compassionate, increase our sincerity, and bring us closer to reality. Sadness must be for the good of humanity, or we would not have the capacity for it. But so is joy. Sorrow is so potent, however, that we need it only in small amounts for brief periods, but we require joy in big doses for long durations. Now, truly in life, as the quote mentioned, sorrow is going to become a part of our life at some point, but we have to remember those things that are joyful and the things that make us happy. Maybe your family that you can rely on in a difficult time. Maybe you lose a family member in a car accident, or whatever the case may be, and you're struggling with the sorrow that comes with that type of a loss. You can lean upon your family, you can lean upon your church family, lean upon God first and foremost. If you have sorrow in your life, I hope that you're able to get over it. I hope that you're able to move past it and be able to be joyful once again in your life. Stay with us here on Text Message. We'll be right back. Life is something that, as we go across, I think many people have said before, it's like a roller coaster ride. From time to time, the ride is very smooth and it's very easy to get along with, and then out of nowhere, you're flipping upside down and things just spin out of control. And of course, it's hard during those moments where life is spinning out of control to throw your hands up as though you're enjoying yourself and to shout with enthusiasm and to be excited about what you're going through. Difficult times happen in life, and they make us being happy, they make it a lot harder. And so we understand that the best way to try to prepare for things that are difficult to deal with is to have a support system. Obviously, reading your Bible first and foremost, praying like you should, being the type of Christian like you should, is a big part of your life. It should be, at least. But having someone else that can guide you in the ways that you're not necessarily strong in yet and ask questions. And truly on Text Message, we have that experience with some great men, great preachers who are young in their age but very well advanced in their knowledge. I think of Chris Clevenger, who you have seen on Conversations with Chris. I think of now as we're about to go to 10 minutes to kick off with Robert Jeffries, a man who is a young person, and yet he has still got a ton of knowledge for his age, and he is someone who, when you talk to, you're just amazed at how far along he is in his study in the Bible. And it really does inspire you as a person to try to study that much as well. So as we think about 10 minutes to kick off, as we think about the tough stuff that we deal with in life, I know teenagers, you may not want to admit it. You may think in your head you're the only person going through what you're going through. But I promise you, all your friends have gone through it or will. Your parents have gone through it or are. And it's going to be something that if you ask, you'd be surprised of how many people could help you get through it. And so that's what we try to do on these types of programs where we ask questions. So today we're going to have another episode of 10 Minutes to Kickoff. We'll be right back.
But I took a group of teenagers there one night, and it was just a casual atmosphere. Came over and she said, "This is our drink menu." And she said, "These are the special drinks that we have for tonight. These are the ones that are on sale." And I looked at her and I said, "Ma'am," I said, "do you realize you're talking to a group of teenagers here?" And she very quickly took that paper away. And so these things are being offered up right and left at various places that we go to. And, you know, there are a number of reasons or a number of things that alcohol can do to an individual. There are a number of reasons why an individual may partake in this fermented drink. You know, one of the things is especially for a young person, the young person likes to fit in. The young person doesn't want to sit out like a sore thumb. The young person doesn't want to be made fun of. And so if you've got other people that are partaking of this, you're going to want to do it too. A young person a lot of times looks up to an adult. And if you see an adult that's kicking back drinking a beer, if you see an adult that's partaking of a mixed drink, you know, well, that's something that adults do. Sometimes alcohol is used for people to overcome shyness, so that they feel comfortable in certain settings. Sometimes it's able to alter a person's mindset so that they can feel like they can do anything. There was a song years ago that one of the lyrics in there was that after a person took a drink of alcohol that they felt 10 feet tall and bulletproof. For some people, it's a coping mechanism. You know, when you get depressed, they'll drink to drown out their sorrows. You know, you got numbness that's involved with that. If a person drinks so much, you know, they get to a point where they don't feel anything. And so there's so many different instances in life where this may come about.
Well, what about when I think about the fact that there's so many people that get affected by alcohol, whether it be, as you know, the tragedy that struck South Haven 10 years ago now, almost in December, where a little boy was hit in a family car and died due to brain damage from the drunk driver. And that drunk driver, of course, we know was let off, and that still has bothered all of those that are involved with that family. But what may be, I guess the word scary is complex. What type of illustration could you use to maybe try to keep people from wanting to use alcohol?
You know, there's several that really come to mind. When you think about those things we mentioned just a few moments ago about the overcoming shyness, about being able to take care of depression or use it to cope with depression, being able to use it as a mechanism to help us with other things in life, all of those things seem so enticing. You know, they help us to fit in. They make us look cool and things along that line. They make it look so enticing when you watch, say for instance, the Super Bowl or commercials in general. The commercials that are always the best looking, that are most enticing, are which ones? The ones where alcohol is involved, whether it's beer related, whether it's a mixed drink, whether it's this, whether it's that, and they're going to tell you, hey, you can have this, or you can have that if you partake of this. And but what they don't tell you is the other side. They don't tell you the effects that this fermented drink has. And, you know, they don't tell you about what may happen the next day with the hangovers that take place, where an individual may be vomiting profusely, where an individual may have some other digestive issues. What they don't tell you is that when you really want it out, alcohol is a poison. And your body is trying to get rid of that poison. It may take it some time to get rid of that poison, but your body is trying to get rid of that poison that's been placed into it. Another illustration that comes to mind, they don't tell you about all the money that's involved, the money that's been wasted on this. They don't tell you about the abuse that a lot of times is accompanied by individuals that drink it, how many children have been abused over the years, how many wives have been abused because a husband goes out and drinks. They don't tell you about depression, damage that you can have towards your liver. But one of the things that they really don't tell you about is death. And, you know, the leading contributor for deaths from people ages 6 to 33 years old, 33 years of age, is alcohol. Wow. And, you know, Michael, you bring up an interesting point about is a good friend of mine, and we've developed a great relationship over the years. And one of the things that people will tell you in these commercials is what it can do to a person if they get behind the wheel of a car. And there's no telling how many families that have been affected by this, and how many lives have been lost because an individual was foolish enough to get behind the wheel of a vehicle after drinking was something that has the ability to alter the mind the way that it does.
And you tell anybody as a young person growing up, I'll let you have a night of fun, but tomorrow you're going to throw up all day, you're going to feel terrible. No young kid will take that deep unless you're going to let them be on their favorite candy. But the logic as a child says, I don't want to throw up all day. And yet as we get to be more mature, the thing we want to do is to overindulge and to drink so much alcohol that, like you said, a poison, we have to try to get that out. And I don't understand how we can preach as a nation at ball games. We're going to watch the game in a minute, but preaching as a nation at a ball game, we can drink alcohol for 3 quarters. And in the fourth quarter, that's enough time to fill it. And I don't understand that at a gas station, you can sell alcohol and then say that drinking and driving is wrong. What does that say? Is a gas station where you go to fill it?
One of the things that really, irks me and my wife as well is seeing people go out with their families to a restaurant and mom and dad are both drinking, and they've got to get home somehow. And generally, they're not going to call a cab. They're going to go out, take their family, put those kids in the back seat, strap them in, and mom and dad, one of them is going to be the driver taking those kids home that night after they've been drinking.
It puts everybody at risk. That's right. It seems like such a serious matter. That brings me to my next question I wanted to ask you. We encounter alcoholism a lot, like we've been talking about here. I just want to know, what does God say about alcoholism? What can I equip myself?
That's a great question. That's a question that we always need to try to find an answer from His Word.
Okay.
And it's important that we always go back to the standard. And God's Word has a lot to say about the subject. I just want to share just a few passages with you as we think about this. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1. Oftentimes we talk about Solomon as being a wise man. And Solomon, of course, writing through inspiration here, he says, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging. Whosoever is deceived thereby is not, there's our word, wise. Solomon, being that wise man that he was, he's trying to give valuable information. He says, you want to go out here and drink? That's a person that's foolish. That's not a person that's wise. And, we remember what the word foolish means. It's somebody who's been given the information and they deny that information. These people had information. They knew what alcohol was able to do, and yet if they still partook in it, that's an individual who is foolish. You look over at Proverbs chapter 23, just a couple of chapters over, beginning at verse 29. He says, who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contentions? Who hath babbling? Who hath wounds without a cause? Who hath redness of the eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, they that go seek mixed wine. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth its color in the cup, when it moveth itself in right. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. One other passage that comes to mind is from the prophet Isaiah. And I want us to look just very quickly at Isaiah chapter 5, verses 11 and 12. Isaiah 5, beginning at verse 11. And really, we'll hold off verse 12 and really let's look specifically at verse 11. He says, woe unto them that rise up early in the morning, that they may follow strong drink and continue until night, till wine inflame them. That word, woe, is not a word that's an encouraging word. God was not encouraging them to continue to partake in this. If anything, He was saying, hey, we need to put the brakes on. Whoa. We've got a serious issue here. And He was saying, hey, this drinking of this particular liquid, it's a serious issue because of the things that it can do to a person. And so God was trying to give us all the logical means to keep us from doing things that we wouldn't normally do.
Well, this isn't a subject that's pleasant to talk about, and I wish I wouldn't have to ask you these questions. We're grateful that as we've mentioned before, the Bible always has an answer for questions such as these, and that if we read the Bible, we can understand that things like this don't need to be a part of our life as a Christian.
That's right. That's right. I can ask you one.
What?
When can club start?
Yes, I'm so excited for that. Game 7. Someone that can answer those tough questions for me. You know, I think one of the saddest things in life is to have questions but not have someone that you know you can ask the tough stuff with. Truly having people like Chris and Robert are very beneficial to my life as a Christian, to my walk with God, and hopefully they'll also benefit you as well. Well, you got to see Gerald on the program. You got to see Jordan. Hopefully, in the near future, you'll be seeing him as well. And so we're looking forward to that. We're also looking forward to having yet another episode of Pew Packers that we can watch. Of course, for those who may not know, we try to explain what most of the programs are as we present them. And Pew Packers is a program where they take the songs of a songbook or a camp book, maybe a song that you've sung your whole life, but you don't really understand what it's talking about. And Gerald and Jordan, they take it, they go to the Bible and find verses that apply to what that song is talking about. And maybe pierce my ears, we've mentioned from time and time again that you're going to serve God and only serve God. And they do a great job talking about so many different songs. And so right now, we're going to go to another Pew Packers segment, and we'll be back to close out the program after this.
We'd like to thank you for joining us for Pew Packers today. Today we're going to learn about the song that is powerful, Working Power in the Blood. You know, this is a great invitation song. Wherever you go, this is one of the popular invitation songs to sing. But, you know, this song displays the greatness and the power that's in the blood of Jesus Christ. But it's really good for Christians to go back and just to revisit what the blood does and how just awesome it is. And it's wonder working, and that's said throughout the entire song, and how great the blood of Christ is and how it continues to have power today.
There's another thing I like about this song. This song actually asks you questions.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in the audience and you're thinking about going forward, you know, there's always questions in your mind. Should I do this? Should I do this?
Yeah.
But this song is actually asking you these questions and making you think about, you know, your salvation and think about the power of the blood. So that's another reason why, you know, we like using it for invitation songs.
Right, so let's look at the first verse. It's actually, like you said, formed in a question. It says, would you be free from the burden of sin? There's power in the blood. Would you or evil a victory to win? There's power in the blood. So like you said, always ask a question to those in the audience of what they're going to do after they heard the message and after they heard what the blood of Christ can do for you. And the first verse seems like it implores the sinner to leave the burden of sin out in the world, because there really is wonder-working power in the blood of Christ. And it seems like it's also asking if you know, he or she is willing to leave the world of sin and become and serve Christ. It's a big decision, but it's one of the greatest decisions that anybody can make in their entire life. And it reiterates, you know, the question every time. Every time I ask the question, it's wonder-working power in the blood of Christ. So it always makes the statement, you can ask the question, but no matter what you say, there's always wonder-working power in the blood of Christ. And it encourages us to overcome the evil in the world and to gain the victory with the blood of Christ.
Right. The first verse is similar to the second verse. The second verse says, it's answering the question again, would you be free from your passion and pride?
Yeah.
There's power in the blood. Come now for a cleansing to Calvary's tide. There's power in the blood. This verse is asking the sinner, will you leave your passion and your pride in order to come to Christ?
Yeah.
Will you leave all the things that you used to do? Will you stop stealing? Will you stop cheating? Will you stop just fill in the blank? Will you leave that behind to come to Christ?
Right.
And there's nothing that the blood of Christ cannot cleanse. You know, like you said, you know, in the earlier segments, how Paul, he considered himself the chief of sinners, but yet he was washed in the blood.
Right.
So if Paul persecuted Christians, killed Christians, did all these things, what makes us think that we can't be washed in the blood?
Exactly.
You know, so we have to remember that too while we're singing the song. It doesn't matter what we did, if you repent and you turn to Christ, then everything will be added unto you.
Right, and that's a big roadblock for a lot of people. They need to realize that the blood of Christ is wonder working and it cleanses anything. And they really need to study more on that as well. But the third verse asks the question, would you be much whiter than snow? Again, there's wonder working power in the blood. Sin stains are lost and his life-giving flow. There's wonderful power in the blood. Now it seems like the song is asking, okay, do you want to be whiter than snow? Do you want to be seen in the eyes of Christ, in the eyes of God, as whiter than snow? If you think about it, all of us had to go through and ask this question before we were baptized into Christ. Is this something that we want to do? And everybody wants to be pleasing in the eyesight of God. But this is a decision that everybody's going to have to make for themselves. And I love how this song asks the question over and over, but just keeps saying, there's wonderful working power in the blood of Christ. And your sin stains will be lost in the living blood of Christ because simply there's just wonder working power.
Yes. The last verse, again, it asks another question. And I think these questions they're progressive. So this verse says, would you do service for Jesus your King? There's power in the blood. So it's like, once you become a Christian, there's work to be done. Many times we get baptized, we obey the gospel, and then we just want to come and sit down on the pew. But that's when the work is first started. So we have to remember that before we obey the gospel. The second part of the verse says, would you live daily his praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. This is telling you have to count the cost. It's an everyday thing. It's not, you just put it on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday, and you can do whatever you want throughout the rest of the week. This is telling you this is an everyday process. We're supposed to study. We're supposed to evangelize, go out and teach others, bring other souls to Christ. It's a continuous process that only ends when we pass away from this earth.
I think that's the great thing about this song. Just because all those questions, people really have to answer those while they're singing it. And I think that's why we've had countless baptisms with the singing of this song as an invitation song because of how powerful and how strong those questions are because it really needs an answer from those in the audience. We'd like to thank you for joining us today for Pew Packers, going through There's Power in the Blood. There's just great things that Jesus Christ has done for us. His blood is amazing, and if you haven't come in contact with it, he's waiting for you, and he would love you to come in contact with the blood of Christ.
Maybe that was a song that you'd never thought of from that perspective before. Maybe the question we asked Robert today was a question that you've wanted to ask for such a long time, but you just didn't feel like you could. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully it's something that you've learned. Hopefully we've helped you, because that's our job. That's what we were wanting to do so much so, is to please God first and also help anyone with any questions they need. And of course, the number that you saw on your screen from time to time throughout the program is the number for text message. It's the number that you can text with any type of thought or question or concern, maybe an improvement that we could make, maybe something you'd like to see done on text message at some point. We'd love to hear your feedback. We always appreciate some constructive criticism so that we can know where we're failing, we can know where we're improving. Thank you so much for being here today. We want to thank you so much, and we hope that you'll be back next week. I'm Michael Clark. This has been Text Message, and we'll see you next time.